Thank you for joining us for another virtual NAB session for the Studio-B&H. And today we're going to have very interesting guests with something kind of unusual. But before we do that, we're bringing you this live from our studio in Long Island. Steve is running the mini broadcast environment over there. I'd like to mention that we bring this initiative to all NAB viewers and our B&H customers. Because it is important for us to connect with our audience. So today we are very lucky. We have Jason and Francois from ARRI, a good friend at ARRI. And before we dive into a very interesting demo that's very relevant, to today's events, I'd love for them to introduce themselves a little bit. So, Jason, what is your background in the industry? What sort of brought you to doing what you do now?
Thank you, Michelle. I'm Jason. I'm from ARRI. I've been in the industry for 20 years. Before I came to ARRI, I had a small studio, boutique studio based here in Glendale, California. Did visual effects plates for Fast and Furious 4, 5, 6. We did a lot of stuff for Sons of Anarchy and Mayans MC, which is on TV right now, doing main titles and title sequences.
Excellent. Um, Francois, you and I have known each other for a little bit, and you do have a different background. I think you have some broadcast experience. Tell us exactly how you ended up at ARRI.
Thank you, Michelle. I've been in the industry, in the production industry, for a little bit over 25 years. In that time, I've worked in many roles in many organizations. I was involved with the engineering, so design, product planning. I was involved with operation for many years as well. So I've worked in production, post-production, and I feel really fortunate because today is a difficult time for many people. But for me, I feel fortunate because everything I've worked on that would be in the broadcast industry or in the cinematography industry can now be all connected into one solution. So there's many opportunities, and I think that this is what we have to bring to the table. So I'm really excited about what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, fantastic. So precisely, we hear the name ARRI, and we think about filmmaking, right? This is the reason why you're the worldwide leader in digital cinema. But today is not exactly what we're going to be talking about. We are going to talk about remote operation. So, is remote operation a concept that ARRI that sort of started recently because of the unfortunate events that we're all going through, or was this something that was very much a general concept that's been developed for quite a while?
Well, I can start and kick that off for you.
What was very interesting in beginning of this challenging time, I was reached out by some studio executives and creative executives who were looking for a remote solution to continue to put content out for their shows, like marketing content, ways to drive people, the audience to it. Was very interesting because what they were sharing with me is that, because of this time and because of the distancing, social distancing that we have, they asked, is there an opportunity or a way we can get an Alexa camera into a talent's home and be able to shoot them remotely, limited, very limited crew, or maybe no crew at all, so at least they can get some content continuing during these challenging times. So that was the first initiative that reached out to us. And what happened is, yes, we worked on it and we developed this remote solution for this actual situation that we are in, but we do see it continuing on.
We have a couple of slides that we've compiled just to help people understand the kind of question and some of the intricacy of remote productions. So Jason has already touched on some of them, and I have one right now that shows the webcam novelty. So I will pass that back to Jason.
Yeah, what's really important when it comes to this webcam novelty is that, the customers or people that we've been talking to don't want their footage to look like what they call the webcam look of 2020. They still want to maintain quality that they're going to see throughout the years. So when shows like Jimmy Kimmel and all these other shows, we've all seen them start very early and use the webcam look. which is totally fine because we were in this challenging time. But the customers and prospects that have been coming to me have mostly wanted to maintain the cinematic quality for whatever their content needs to be. So it's not just for scripted television, unscripted television. I've been outreached by esports, man, everything from tech industry to sports like football, basketball, baseball. So what it is though is that they want to maintain quality. They do not want to shoot with a cellular phone. They do want to shoot with like an Alexa or a mirror camera system, but need to record it remotely. And I like Francois said, the novelty is running off. I feel people are, kind of tired of this webcam look too as well, and want to maintain the quality, which is very essential and very important.
So you have the two of you have sort of worked a little system where one of you is in LA, one of you is in Canada, north of the border, but you're able to operate remarkably in a remarkable level of interactivity. So if you can sort of tell us a little bit what each setup of yours is and how you interact and how you sort of devise what I can see is really something that has great potential, for the more difficult sort of environments conditions that we may have with us for a while.
Sure. One thing I like to demonstrate is showcasing that I'm in Los Angeles, and of course, Francois is up in Toronto. So, what we like to share with you is how I can remote control both lighting system, camera system from here down in Los Angeles. So, I'm going to demonstrate that for you here. I'm going to work on my web remote for lighting and for camera. I'm going to start by using my lighting remote system here. So I will still first work with the light remote. You will see Francois up in Toronto, and then I will go to the CCT parameters through our lighting remote too, and you'll see me slowly raise the intensity up on Francois, and then lower the light back down. And I can also control many other functionalities of the light. I can change the color temperature. I can bring it more colder from 3200 up to 5600. I can bring it back down for him as well. I can also control the tint, the green magenta as well, but I can also change the color temperature. So I have a lot of control and functionality that I can do remotely. I can also do some lighting effects with it as well. I can go in and change the color temperature. I'm playing around with some parameters in terms of skin tone, making a little warmer with some CTB, CTO, and some color temperature straw. And then I can play with some light effects here that I can control. He likes to dance, so I put a party club look over Francois to make it look like he's dancing. How do you like that, Francois? Look good? So try to add a little party with some lighting effects tools that are also I control remotely as well. I can also, make it maybe a little more romantic. I can go to a fire effect, make a little more, romantic piece on him, and then I can go back to CCT and make it normal again. So a lot of parameters. Next thing is I can go to the camera and actually control parameters of the camera remotely, like our Alexa Mini LF. So I can see the exact user interface that you see on the camera. I can change the ISO from 320 to 800 ISO. I can change the, frame rate from 23976 to 60. I can even remote trigger the camera from standby, and I can go over and start recording Francois' Alexa Mini LF, and then I can pause it again. So a lot of parameters I can control remotely using the remote system for both camera and for lighting.
In essence, what that means is it means that if you're able to control the equipment that is where Francois is, it also means that this can be a multi-crew operation where you can expand the size of the production and have someone who handles lighting in one location, someone who handles cameras in another, and then a very, very reduced staff, with talent in the potential studio that is being used for the shooting. So tell us a little bit if that's part of what you received in terms of inquiries from studios and production companies, is to put full-fledged productions into place with respecting sort of the new paradigm that we live in, with social distancing and a lack of proximity between people.
Yeah, what's very important, I'm glad you brought up the subject of respecting social distancing, because that's a very important part of this remote solution. One aspect it is this shallow depth of field that you get with the Alexa Mini LF. If we do roll this into a talent or on-air talent's home, in the background, we want to maintain the shallow depth of field so we don't see a painting or something in the background that the artist doesn't want anyone to really see. That's where the Alexa Mini LF in this remote solution is very valuable. The other great part about this remote solution is it doesn't need to touch anything in regards to the home of Wi-Fi, doesn't need power. So we just literally can roll this in, and the only thing touching is actually just, say, the wheels that are on the base of the actual tripod. So very, very respectful to the artist and on-air talent's home or location, wherever they're at. So we don't need to tie into anything as well. So I think that's very respectful, and also respecting the environment in the talent's home as well.
And if you look at this example, I don't have to go really far. Right now I'm open with a fairly wide opening. The lens can go much faster. The signature prime can easily go to 1.8. Right now I'm open at 2.8, as you can see on your screen. And it didn't take too much distance at the back to hide those confidential information. That would be books or a picture, like Jason had mentioned. And the other thing is that a faster lens, in our case, the signature prime, has the advantage that if you're in a small room, you often need to create that artistic look. You need to have that depth of field. So you're going to look at a longer telephoto, but the longer telephoto is going to be framed way too tight. So we have the advantage of keeping a shallow depth of field at wide angle. So that's a big one.
Now that's really cool. I think that really opens, a great sort of sense of potential for the level of productions that can be done remotely. Francois, if you don't mind, maybe give us a little bit of sort of the internal workings of that setup. How do you actually get to communicate between these two locations and have camera control and lighting control, and also remote control on the device that actually activates the controls of the camera and the lighting? So that's sort of a complete sort of remote production environment. And then you also have the ability to continue to be interactive. So tell us a little bit about how the system is put together.
Absolutely. So if you're looking at the environment right now, you see I have an S60 sky panel, ARRI sky panel in the front. In the back, I have a Fresnel, an L7. And I have in the background, by the way, an Alexa Mini, the cage for the Alexa Mini LF Mini. And you almost didn't see it. It almost didn't attract your attention because it was, again, out of focus in the display. But what we were doing is we were capturing through an Alexa Mini LF. So what you see in front of me is an Alexa Mini LF with a signature prime, and that's the picture you've been seeing the frame from, and you could recognize it with the marking. So around my screen, you could see the shutter index, the exposure index, the shutter information, frames per second. So that's how we compose it. From a traditional setup, it's quite simple. One camera, two lights. We could have done everything with one light. Jason has shown you that we can do special effects. So all good reason to say we don't just leave the light there and we hope for the best. We bring back control over there. In terms of the control itself, all of our products are IP based. So they're using computer technology when it gets to communication. So it means that the Alexa Mini has a web remote built in. The Sky Panel has a web remote built in. So what Jason and I were doing was basically to use that web remote functionality over Ethernet. And at this point, it doesn't make any difference if it's within 3 feet or if it is 3,000 miles. It can be in any country, and we're able to control that. One thing that was interesting here is that when Jason showed the light on the side, it became quite bright. We could have shown you that the dynamic range is something that the camera can capture, and we knew about that. We know that in traditional production, but in this environment, we have no control over the talent's room. It could be in a living room, it could be in a basement, like right now I'm 8 feet underground, so it's difficult to control the light coming from the window, but the camera can capture it, and we can actually show people that the camera can capture either a log C or a 709 or any other log that is needed. So the fact that we have this control of dynamic range in an uncontrolled situation means that we can compensate for a lot of things when we don't have the technical crew on board or they're not physically close to the talent. We have a picture here that I thought was interesting. This picture came from our National Association of Broadcasters, the NAB 2018. And this picture is interesting because it looks really well composed. It has a shell depth of field, it has the rule of third, it has nice lighting, dynamic range, but also the color science, the skin tone reproduction that we expect from our product. But everybody would assume that today, with the situation, we cannot compose a nice picture. Well, if we bring back that remote production, if we bring back the gaffer, people in charge of lighting, if we bring back a director of photography, we can certainly compose that picture, even if it's remotely. Case in point, at the NAB trade show floor, if we see behind the scene, it was in an uncontrolled environment. There was many vendors around us, some of them with LED walls, some of them with laser. So it was going all over the place. There were some sodium light at the ceiling. There was no light control, and we still were able to compose a really, really nice picture. So it's a question of using the proper tool. And in our case, using the Mini LF gave us a shallow depth of field, better color rendition. So we were able to just add 2 lights, a key light and a hair light, so a S30 Sky Panel, an L7, and we were able to compose a really, really nice picture. I think that from a technical perspective, what I've just shown you is traditional, it's fairly traditional. The remote portion is maybe a little bit extra. And the question we've also had many times over the last couple of weeks is, how do we take that picture that was controlled remotely by professionals, and how do we bring it back to a station? And many people have been using the internet, which is a viable choice, but there are other solutions. Some people might be thinking of the traditional way of sending back the signal to a TV station or production company. It could be a satellite uplink truck. It could be a microwave trucks. So basically, they're devices that are quite visible when you park them in your driveway. It attracts attention. But all of that is unfortunately not available right now. Even if you want to do that, they're covering the news. So what we've been doing in the last couple of weeks is to work with network bonding, cellular solution, so that we can not only remotely control the camera, remotely control the light, but also send a stable picture out of the home by using multiple network bonded together. And all of that with the minimum impact on the talent. So using the minimum number of technical interactions so that they don't have to do more than turn on the unit. So that's the demo that we've been doing over the last couple of weeks.
So essentially, you've taken the sort of unequaled image quality of ARRI cameras and lenses, and you've decided to leverage the very proven technology of using cellular bonding for video communication, and you've made an entire ecosystem that allows people to think differently about how to put together that production. Is that correct?
That is correct. I could not have said it better.
Yes.
So, Jason, you've been doing a lot of demos in conjunction with Francois, but you and I have talked a little bit about who is interested in the marketplace in deploying such solutions. Can you tell us a little bit who has been approaching ARRI? We've been approached too, because as a partner, contributing partner to ARRI, we provide these same solutions. But who you been talking to about such solutions?
Yeah, it's been a very wide gamut. We've heard everyone from the music industry, actual talent themselves, music talent management as well, all the way from esports to also other sports like football, basketball, baseball, the tech industry, Silicon Valley industry, because there's also a lot of events that have been canceled in all wide gamuts of conferences, trade shows. So what they're looking at is doing high quality virtual remote content. So hearing that as well as scripted and unscripted, of course. But man, it's full the gamut, as well as a house of worship too, as well. They're looking to do very high quality remote solution too. So yeah, the gamut is quite wide on who's been asking or requesting our solution.
So in the current climate, I think it also opens up the possibility of thinking of not just single camera productions, but multi-camera productions. I know that ARRI's been at the forefront of promoting a new sort of approach towards multi-camera live production. Tell us a little bit how you think that could also have new implications into putting together productions in maybe slightly larger venues where still, we have to remain conscious of the lack of proximity between people, and the ability to have crew remotely operating a multi-camera production.
Yes, absolutely. I could start this off one. I was actually been reached out by companies also that have to do a stand-up comedy act. So what they're looking at is multiple cinematic cameras that can shoot a stand-up comedy, put three in there, tell the talent how much parameters they have to move in a multicam scenario, and they can use the remote solution and remotely control everything somewhere else. Absolutely. The other thing is the music industry has reached out to me about doing a virtual concert with their talent because they've been devastated by this, challenging times from the revenue that comes from doing concerts. So now they're brainstorming and looking at doing a virtual concert to drive revenue for their talent from the management side, and talent actually talking about creatively what they can do in a remote multicam, cinematic multicam scenario. So it's very exciting.
Maybe, Michelle, I
Yes,
can
okay.
mention that when it gets to multicam, we've been showing a lot of multicam solution using fiber optics, where it was maybe a shorter distance, but we can still talk about kilometers or miles. So it's also something that we had in our lineup, and it's also something where we've helped people where the distance, let's say on a football field, was quite far. You're talking about easily almost 900 feet. So these are remote solutions that our customer deal with every day, and we have a system integration group that operates globally that has helped these people to connect cameras, remote control panel, and the fiber optics network in between. So in this case, we're using more of a wireless connectivity. We're using a longer distance, but essentially all the tools we were using to remotely control the camera, that would be a remote control panel, or that would be the conversion, the video conversion, and so on. This is all still viable. We just integrate it differently over a different distance.
All right. I think this is, a very compelling presentation. I would invite all our viewers who are interested in using the quality of ARRI cameras and lenses to reach out to us to explore, what kind of possibilities this brings to them. And we gladly invite our friends at ARRI, to get into sort of more sort of deeper conversations, as this process goes along, and it probably is here to stay. I think remote operation, and you've probably, talked to as many people as I have, but do you see remote operation continuing to grow despite the fact that became a necessity due to the health crisis? I think it brings also new sort of opportunities, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely see this growing and more opportunities because the feedback I'm getting from show creators, directors, producers, you can really see this opportunity to do more things than they might not have thought of they can do in this new day and age. This kind of this factory reset, you would say, in terms of, what we can and cannot do. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like one of them is some were scaling things back, but maybe they don't have to scale it back. Maybe they can still use it through our ARRI remote solution. So that's what's very important. And it's also a very consultative process. So it's not just supplying the technology, but really get a discussion going and talking to them what it is they want to achieve and how we can help them and support them with this remotely.
Francois, what's your take on how this is going to develop in the long term?
Well, I think that the change, like Jason mentioned, had already happened. We had more and more people talking about remote production. And this is just accelerating the process. One thing I would say is we hear a lot also about new technology like real-time solution, where they're taking LED panel and they have a camera in the middle. So because of the way it's shot, you cannot have as many people close to the camera because they have an impact on the light. So this would have forced some situation, some type of shoot to look at a remote production, maybe not over a long distance, but certainly outside of that LED environment. I think it's quite exciting because, like Jason mentioned, we hear new ideas every day. Most people didn't think about it. We had many people who ask about robotic head. Can they put the camera and control it also remotely? We have solutions for that. So as we're talking with people, the wheel starts turning and saying, oh, what about this and this? So we're adding things to it. It was definitely a transition that was happening. I just think that it's speeding up that transition.
All right. Thank you very much, both of you, Jason and Francois, for spending time with us. Again, anybody who has any questions, who would like to engage us, please go to our website or on social media channels, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much, and please tune in for more sessions, for the next coming days. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, and everybody be safe.